السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله الذي لا إله سواه، والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا محمد رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. Ya Allah, please help us be of those who listen to the words of admonition and follow the best of them. اللهم افتح مسامع قلوبنا لذكرك. Oh Allah, please open the hearing channels of our hearts to your dhikr, to that which reminds us of you. Ameen. Last week I introduced us to a concept of the legal axioms or قواعد فقهية, and I selected one or two, I remember, and we a little bit elaborated upon those even at a spiritual level. If you recall, we did not only, alhamdulillah, hopefully have an idea about the juristic application of such principles, but also the mundane applications of such axioms, and that when we know them, we are better off as Muslims in our dealings in life in general, and more likely than not, knowing them, we would make the better decisions in our lives, whether at the family level, or the commercial level, or business level, or management level, or political level, and even we spoke of some spiritual, if you will, in my opinion, applications of that, how we can see that happening. I will continue tonight, I felt I will continue tonight with some of that, inshallah ta'ala, and hopefully within the 40 minutes we have or so, we can cover maybe 2-3 of them. If we do 2 or 3, that's a lot, but we will see, inshallah ta'ala. The rule we covered first was الأمور بمقاصدها. Second, we covered العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا للألفاظ والمباني. And what else? I think this is it, right? I think we two only, right? Oh, we did begin to cover that? Good. I just mentioned it. Okay. اليقين لا يزول بالشك. I'm not going to go back to what we said already. Khalas. Some of you, I see like your eyes are, and you were here last time, so you should know what we were talking about when we said الأمور بمقاصدها. That's the Arabic text, and we did translate that and elaborate on that. Matters are all dependent upon their objectives and their aims, and then we explained what that means and how it is very relevant, not only at the juristic level and the court level and fatwa decisions and qadi decisions, etc., but also at our regular mundane level of life. And then the other one is العبرة في العقود على المقاصد والمعاني لا على الألفاظ والمباني. That what counts most in dealings, in contracts, in agreements, is not what we said only, is not about the wording and the words and the literal meanings, but what is meant by that and what is the aim behind that. It's always very important. And by the way, as far as I know, many of these things are very often and part of secular laws nowadays in the world. These Sharia principles are everywhere in law, without knowing that it had anything to do with Sharia, or some people, understand them as the source of them not necessarily in Sharia, but those are all Shari'i principles. And these that we mentioned in so many ways are applicable in secular law and in courts as well. And then the third one is al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shakk. That's where we left off. That is, certitude and certainty is not removed by doubt, by speculation, by conjecture, by probability. But for certitude to be removed would require what? Certitude at least of the same caliber, of the same magnitude, or greater. If we can say that about certitude. So if one is certain of something, then that certainty should not be removed and should not change on the basis of, of some things from here, some things from there, as speculations, as conjecture, as maybes, as possibilities, things that are not strong with evidence. And this happens to us very often, at home, family life, in challenges at home, and so on. Oftentimes, in my experience of counseling and of living, etc., people violate this principle. They've been living for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. They have developed certain certitude about certain things and about themselves. Then comes a challenge which is probably just transient and is not definitive in terms of the true meaning of definitive. It affects the person, and the person changes his or her opinion, his or her emotion about the other one, the other spouse or the other relatives, or subhanAllah. And here is a trick, and that's of course a trick of nafs and of shaitan, that on the basis of an ihtimal, a basis, even if we say, of something possible, but does not reach the level of even probable, let alone sometimes the level of certain. So we change an attitude, we give up an attitude born out of certainty for an attitude born out of possibility. Do you understand? Every one of us. In all matters of life. In all matters of life. In deen and in dunya. This is a great principle to behold and to be equipped with, and those who have internalized it helps them greatly to have a very balanced life at the social level, at the political level, administrative level. This is a great principle. So, but of the applications of it in fiqh, for example, and many of our brothers or sisters who are, especially some brothers, who are very concerned about najasa, and we should be. Sometimes it is taken to extreme. But if I know for sure that my thobe, my cloth, my pants, my garment was touched by najasa, in other words, it has najasa in it, and that I cannot locate it for some reason, some type of najasa that is colorless, for example, and I do not know. I'm certain that it is najis, but I do not know where it is to wash only the part where there is najasa. Applying this principle, what would you think the answer should be? What should I do? Wash? You see, the whole thing is common sense, isn't it? It's common sense. That's the only way to be sure, to preserve the original certitude that I have. to preserve the original certitude that I have, is to do that. Since I'm not sure anymore where the najasa is. But I am sure that there is najasa somewhere on my cloth. اليقين لا يزول بالشك. So if I go to one spot and I wash it, that's possible. It's probable. That will not remove certitude, yaqeen, that it is somewhere, anywhere on my cloth. The only way to have an action that is in certitude, that is equal to my original certitude in this case, is to wash the entire garment, for example. Another example that is also given by our fuqaha, rahimahullah ta'ala, in this level. If I knew, I was sure that some time ago, an hour ago or 2 hours ago, or whenever, I did perform my wudu. I did renew my wudu. And then salah time comes and I think I passed gas, excuse me. I think I urinated. I'm not sure. What do you think the answer is in this case? On the basis of this axiom, what should I do? I have to perform wudu again, right? No. Yes. If the doubt is less than the certitude, is that an if? Is that an if? There's no if here, if doubt is less than certitude. Doubt is less than certitude. It's not if doubt is less than certitude. Doubt, by definition, is less than certitude. In this case, I am certain that I performed wudu. And then now, I doubt that I lost my wudu. Maybe, maybe not. This principle say, the fact that you were clean in tahara, in wudu, is not removed by your doubt. You are in tahara. The original status remains quo. اليقين لا يزول بالشك. I had yaqeen that I was in tahara. Now I have shak that I lost tahara. I have doubt now that I lost tahara. Maybe, maybe not. And this is also very practical because most, alhamdulillah, most perhaps brothers and sisters who don't know this detail in fiqh, well, you can do that. They go and I have to do my wudu. It doesn't count. And maybe they say, you have to do your wudu again. No, the answer is not. You have to do your wudu again. The answer is, you have your wudu. If you want to do it again, that's fine. But you don't have to perform your wudu again because certitude is not changed or removed by conjecture or by doubt. And similarly, of course, if I remember I went and this happens, this is true, this is real. I'm sure it happened at least to some of you here. It happened to me. The older we grow, the more these things happen, it seems. The other example, if I am sure that I used the bathroom or that I passed gas, I am sure of that. But also in the meanwhile, an hour, 2 or 3 hours later, you're very busy, you do perform wudu sometimes regularly and so on. And I do usually perform wudu. I do usually perform wudu regularly, but maybe not. between then and now, what do? Now it is the other way, because I am sure that I used the bathroom. But now I am not sure that I performed wudu after that. I think I did. Now, that think I did is still doubt. That cannot overrule the certainty and certitude that I had before that. Tons of examples like that. And in mundane issues, at home. At home. Opinions at home and in the household. And oftentimes, they are based on the violation of this principle. And I do behave with my family or vice versa on the basis of the opposite of this principle. Doubt removes certainty. Conjecture removes certitude. You know your child, or you know your spouse, that is your husband or your wife. You know them for 35 years or 30 years or 20 years, and you have certainly developed a certitude about some of their characters or themselves. And then, as I said, or I think I did, and then you hear something, or they do something which is possible to be interpreted in 2 or 3 or 4 ways that will taint that original certitude that you had about them. What does the rule say here? Keep what you know for 35 years. That should not change that. That should not change that. In other words, Ramadan is coming, and we are fasting. Of course, nowadays with times, etc. Yeah, actually, I didn't think about that. This now with the watches, it's not an issue at all. Alhamdulillah. But it used to be an issue, a serious issue. It would have happened many times in the experience of people who are fasting. That you're fasting and you doubt that the sun had set. The sun had set. Or you could be even nowadays somewhere and you don't have a watch, and you're not with Muslims, and you're somewhere, and you don't have a watch. Now, and you doubt, I think the sun has set. Then what happens? The sun has set, but maybe it has not set. Can I eat? Can I have iftar at that moment? Be careful. That's well, I leave it to you. That's an example of application. So that you can discover that, and then once you know that, khalas. Yeah. Wait a little bit. Of course, the safest thing, of course, is always to do that. But we're talking about fiqh, we're talking law. If you do something or you don't do it. Pardon me? Yeah, it's cloud. You cannot. Let's say it's clouded where you cannot. You think. So the rule here as applied, al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak. What is yaqeen in this case? What is yaqeen? You are fasting. You fast when? During the day. The original state is the day continues. That's you are in the day, and the day is your yaqeen. A change requires evidence. Your yaqeen is the day is there. I am in the day. I was in the day. Right? That continues to be. Shak does not remove that certitude that the day is, unless I have evidence to the contrary. So I assume that the day continues until I am sure that the sun had set. The day continues because I'm certain of the presence of the day. I was certain of the presence of the day, and actually a corollary of this rule is that what has been is always assumed to continue, unless evidence, of course, otherwise. Always a rule in everything. بقاء ما كان على ما كان. الأصل بقاء ما كان على ما كان. That's also a corollary rule. الأصل بقاء ما كان على ما كان. The original state of things is that things remain the way they were. They're assumed to remain the way they were. That is, unless there is evidence to the contrary. So, day has been up to this moment. It is going to be assumed to continue unless there is evidence to the contrary. That's why somebody has something in their possession, and known to be a regular person, has something in their possession. Somebody comes and claims it's mine, not his. In the absence of evidence to the contrary, the situation continues the way to be it has been. The way to be, it continues to be the way it has been. Possession, in this case, is like ownership. In the absence of evidence to the contrary. So we keep it that way. That certitude, it's in his hands. And the other one claims without due evidence, just, even if Allah knows it is his, but without evidence, it's going to continue to be in the possession of the one who had it from up to this point. Because that's more certain than the claim of someone else saying, it is mine, without evidence. That's why the rule also in the fiqh is البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. Evidence is required from the one who makes a claim or presses a charge. In other words, who claims something to be different than what it has been so far. In that sense, evidence is required for that. Evidence, bayyina. The person in this case against whom this charge has been claimed, that person need only, in accordance to the ulama, from this text, because there is also, this text is attributed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that the person may only swear by Allah that it is indeed, for example, his. As the status quo was, Wallahi, and that those who know what Wallah means, Allahu Akbar. Wallahi, it is mine. That suffices. The other one, to change that condition requires evidence, tangible evidence to the contrary. البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. الأصل بقاء ما كان على ما كان, all derived from this rule of اليقين لا يزول بالشك. Certitude is not changed or altered or removed by doubt. Let me give you another example and then you can go on somewhere else. Go to the next. Ramadan. Now it is Fajr time. No, it's not Fajr time. It's night. And what do we do at night when we wake up? Many perform. It is Barakah. Suhoor. And suhoor doesn't have to be a meal, as you know. And I'm not going to change the conversation. Suhoor can be just a sip of water or something simple. Don't make the poor sisters, even in Ramadan, cook 3 meals. Just 3 meals have to be 3 meals, Ramadan or not. SubhanAllah, this is يَرْحَمُ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَرْحَمْكُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ. As it is said, yet in some cultures, Muslim cultures, women wake up very early. Imagine earlier days, they have to prepare the fire, and prepare a meal. That's what your mothers and grandmothers used to do. So, not require that now. Am I politically incorrect? على أي حال. So we wake up for suhoor, sometimes, alhamdulillah, too, to take something. And assume now a person is not sure. Oh, I think it's Fajr. Sometimes it happens, even nowadays, it's Fajr, I should stop. What's the ruling here? Now you got it. So you're learning well. Exactly. That's the asl. Now it's the night. And what is certain is the presence of the night. That certitude. And it is assumed to continue. بقاء مكان على مكان. Unless there is evidence to the contrary. So you may eat until you are sure that Fajr has broken. Dawn has broken. So these are some applications of, for example, this rule of اليقين لا يزول بالشك. Is there any question about that? Yes. For example.
One certain thing change your opinion. What if it's contrary, where they always had bad habits, bad traits, but when they came, they displayed amazing character, had all the 35 years of knowing. Is there an exception, or is supposed to have a good opinion about them now?
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah, sometimes these axioms have also, sometimes you have a situation in which we may apply many different axioms. And then to level that. First of all, in this case you mentioned, first of all you said, for 35 years this character of this person is terrible. First of all, that statement I have to be very careful about. I have to be very careful about, and I think by experience, such statements are generally, overall, incorrect. Now this is about, I mentioned that in the positive sense, the application of that rule in a mundane issue, in a positive sense. Because remember, these axioms are for law, etc. But internalizing them well will give us an ease to use them wisely and helpfully in our regular situations. So in this case, first of all, I should doubt my judgment. Tazkiyatun nafs. I should doubt my judgment. And in my experience of counseling, and I need to be counseled too, I need counseling. I just happen to be that way for 3 or 4 decades. Many people judge one another, husbands and wives, etc. In sometimes very clearly I know they are wrong about one another. Absolutely. They are wrong. Or sometimes they are 1/3 right and 2/3 wrong. And it could be sometimes they are 2/3 right and 1/3 wrong. And sometimes they could be right. But these things do exist. When it comes to these things, the rule best applied is what? And then consequent of that, the rule best applied is to forgive. Remember, that's husnul khulq. Even when you're right. Even when you're right. That's the rule that takes precedence, because it's the rule of ihsan. And Allah Azza wa Jal yuhibbul muhsinin. He loves those who do ihsan even when they are wronged, especially in the context of family life and relatives and friends and fellow Muslims and etc. Especially. So, and then secondly, assume I am correct in that general judgment that the character has been vile for 35 years in general. Well, and something happens, khalas, in this case it's something positive. I will take it as not this is the character of the person, but this is an exception. And that has to be accepted because it's different, it's good, it's khayr. So it's an exception. Maybe I will not yet, assuming, may Allah forgive me this I will not maybe yet change my evaluation, but if I'm fair and just, I will not forget this incident. And then I will observe, and then, maybe after that, the person began to show exceptional character. And there is a change, and there is a pattern. Then I cannot stick to the opinion of before. I have to change this. I must. Because that's evidence present after the development of a pattern of good conduct. وهكذا والله تعالى أعلم وإياكم. A corollary of another very, very powerful قاعدة is لا ضرر ولا ضرار. لا ضرر ولا ضرار. This is also a hadith attributed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is a golden rule of conduct and behavior in general, and of course in the matters of law and fatawi and so on, especially. لا ضرر. You know what ضرر means? Harm, generally, harm. Anything that is harmful to us in any way, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, physically, financially, economically, politically, militarily, whatever. ضرر. And you can conceive of the different manifestations of harm. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا ضرر. لا ضرر means we must never willfully, voluntarily initiate harm. لا ضرر. At all levels. Beginning, for example, by being impolite or abusive. Beginning by being doubtful. Beginning by being doubtful for no evidence. That's harm also. Beginning by being abusive emotionally or physically or whatever. Harm. Initiating harm against someone economically or financially or politically or at any level. Beating someone, hurting someone, taking from someone, any type of harm. It is haram to be initiated by us. لا ضرر. Apply this in your life and see how often also we violate this at home, at work, in the masjid, when agreeing, when disagreeing. لا ضرر. Second, say in same hadith, and لا ضرار. You can all please memorize this. It's very easy to memorize. Probably the easiest of all hadith to memorize. And it is a rule, an axiom of law, of fiqh in Sharia. ولا ضرار. ضرر versus ضرار. What is ضرار? The ulama say ضرار is, let me put it in this way, is inflicting harm in response to harm with the intent of inflicting harm. Dirar is to reciprocate, however, with the intent of pain and harm. Do you see the difference between reciprocating for justice versus reciprocating for pain? I want you to be in pain because you made me feel pain. I want you to feel pain. Versus justice. And sometimes this exceeds when exceeding the response from justice, it's also dirar. Let's say somebody stole the property of my brother. Then I go steal his property. That's dirar. The first act by the other one who stole the property is darar. This response is dirar. Or I go and then demolish his entire house, or the house of his wife, or his parents, or his family, in response to the harm he inflicted against me. That's dirar. That's abuse of the right of that's abuse of the fulfillment of one's right, or the execution of one's right, or demanding one's right. Sometimes one is excessive in doing that. In using one's right, one uses it excessively. That's dirar. And that's all haram. La darar wa la dirar in Sharia. And you can imagine the application of that. And some people, because they have been hurt, they expect a fatwa for them that makes them, fulfill their vindictiveness and their vengeful, intentions, and to make the other side feel pain. That's not what Sharia is about. And therefore, of the consequences of that, many consequences of that and many corollary rules of that is, for example, دفع المفاسد أولى من جلب المصالح, or درء المفاسد أولى من جلب المصالح. Very golden rule that is a corollary of this, golden rule of لا ضرر ولا ضرار. A corollary rule of it is درء المفاسد أولى من جلب المصالح. Did you get it first in Arabic? Which has the meaning of something like this. درء المفاسد, preventing mafasid, plural of mafsada, which means also things that are hurtful, harmful, not beneficial, corruptive, spoiling. Mafsada makes things terrible. You can call it harm, evil, whatever. All of that is part of the word mafsada. Dar'ul mafasid, keeping mafasid away, preventing them, stopping them, takes priority over acquiring benefits. Think about it first. It takes precedence over acquiring benefits. Even this rule is applied in secular law so many times. Sometimes they fail to apply it, but it is applied so many times also, at so many levels. So, for example, in other words, when we are faced with a probable or even certain mafsada, harm, or evil, or discomfort, or suffering, or pain, or, sort of something we don't want at any level. And also with the probability of acquiring something we want and we like and we desire and we benefit. Usually when there is something, oh, I want to do it, it's good for me in so many ways. Because it's good for me, as I perceive it in so many ways, but it's good for me, let me do it. I do that. That could be the very wrong decision to make. At home, in business, yes, even in business, in management, in administration, in politics, in war, and so on. Because one first has to do what also? Carefully to see and study whether there is harm associated with that. There is harm associated with that. And if there is harm associated with that, and I can do only one of the two, in other words, avoid harm or do the good thing, what is the first choice? Avoid harm. And lose that good thing, not to have it, not to acquire it extra. Of course, that's why, for example, in our deen, intoxicants are forbidden. Intoxicants are forbidden. Usury riba is forbidden. Sexual relationships outside the valid contract of marriage is forbidden. Even though in each one of those, for an individual, he or she would perceive some benefit. And there would be. But the harm in them outweighs the good in them. And avoiding the harm takes precedence over acquiring the benefit. And the harm, certainly, of taking intoxicants nowadays has become even a science. It is so quantified. It's so quantifiably almost measured economically and financially and socially and psychologically and health-wise, let alone morally and spiritually, which most human beings now have lost. The moral and spiritual concern that we lose by acquiring certain things that are beneficial to us in some way, but drastically painful and harmful to us morally and spiritually. Many human beings, even many Muslims, have given that up. Astaghfirullah. Not forgetting that there is harm socially, financially, economically, politically, that can also be even quantified and evaluated relative to the benefit I feel to acquire, for example. So that's why درء المفاسد أولى من جلب المصالح. An example would be, let's say, one owns a property, a land, a house. Of course, there are rules nowadays, zoning regulations. Many zoning regulations are Sharia regulations. Sharia has always been here. It cannot go. It's embedded inside everything we do. But most don't know that it has anything to do with Sharia, because Sharia to many people is 1, 2, 3 things. But part of Sharia is this. So it's my property. I own it. It's mine. Isn't it? I can do in my property what I want. Can I? By law. Can I? No, you can't, right? Even secular law, you can't. You can't do that. On the basis of some arguments that have to do with something like this. Listen to this. دَرْءُ الْمَفَاسِدِ أَوْلَى مِنْ جَلْبِ الْمَصَالِحِ. So in my property, I cannot, for example, start what is it? Hammam. What do you call it? Public bath. Moorish bath, like we used to have back home a long time ago. And then because of what is going to produce of discharges and so on and so forth, and of discomfort, or I can build next in my property, a factory to melt iron, or a blacksmith business. I cannot do that. Though it's my property, it's my benefit, brings me money, but I am harming the environment, my neighbors, with the smoke, with the smell, with kada. I cannot do that. Remember, these are applications of our scholars centuries ago. This is not new. You cannot do that. The qadi, the system will stop you from doing that. And if you do, it has serious consequences. It has to be demolished. دَرْءُ الْمَفَاسِدِ أَوْلَى مِنْ جَلْبِ الْمَصَالِحِ. In our context of Islamic values, if you have your property and you have a neighbor, and then you have, there is a separation between a fence or a wall, and somehow you needed an opening. So you make a big window that would also bring you air and sun, but also it would be directly, you would be directly seen into the property of the neighbor. In our days, women would be feeling at ease in their backyard and so on. But now you have access to that, to look at that. You cannot do that. دَرْءُ الْمَفَاسِدِ أَوْلَى بِنْ جَلْبِ الْمَصَالِحِ. The mafsada of moral indecency on my part, that mafsada to be prevented overweighs the benefit that I want to acquire by having more light into my backyard, for example. دَرْءُ الْمَفَاسِدِ أَوْلَى مِنْ جَلْبِ الْمَصَالِحِ. It's almost time. So I have to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. And then we will continue next time. Let me say one or two things now, inshallah ta'ala. And similarly, this rule can be applied at so many levels. Spiritually, and the spiritual level, for example, if I indulge in serving my base desires sexually, for example, or in similar ways, a person perceives benefit for that, don't they? That immediate benefit that is not so lasting. What comes with it for those who know spiritually is a loss of the qalb with Allah Azza wa Jal. Those who know. How could that compare to that? How could that maslaha that one perceives, that benefit that one perceives, and which is very transient and not lasting, after that one does not want, and then next episode comes and so on and so forth. How could that be weighed against the maslaha of losing one's focus on Allah, one's hubb for Allah, the hubb of Allah for us? How could one take that and loses his or her spiritual intelligence? Because these sins contribute to making us lose our rawhaniyah. And that's our spiritual intelligence. We lose that. And of course, foremost is in akhirah, in the hereafter, the consequence of that. That's a mafsada that, that in akhirah one would be, wal-iyad billah, punished in akhirah, far outweighs, the benefit I do acquire intermittently for a short period of time. We lose that. And of course, another principle we shall talk about, the consequences of that at the level of the public, the level of al-umum. Nowadays that's also quantifiable with numbers of how many thousands and tens of thousands of people, for example, in our country and in the United States, suffer from sexually transmitted diseases. Millions every year, new cases. And those who die on account of some of these diseases. That mafsada takes precedence in overriding and preventing then the benefit and individuals acquire by committing that. These rules are very fundamental and very important in every aspect of our lives. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue next time bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, mentioning more of those and connecting them to our mundane life and family life and other aspects of our lives, and not only at the juristic level, and even as well at the moral and the spiritual levels, inshallah ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Is there any question, quick question? Yes, please. Yes. Of course. That which happened to him was not your intent. That does not fall in dirar. But when he pushed you and you pushed him with the intent of pushing him, that's dirar already. No. No. For in these cases of physical things and so on, that's not justice. In this case, you have to go to a court of law. Yeah, that's exactly my point. That's not justice. In some matters in Sharia, you cannot do it yourself. You have to go to a court of law. Oh, no, that's teasing. So that he did not intend to harm you, and you did not intend to reciprocate the harm. Now, that's a different issue. By the way, justice is not to do what they do to me. That could be the law of the talion. And in Sharia, that's not always the case. If somebody poked one's eye and blinded him, he's not going to go and do that. That's justice, right? No, but that's not justice. You cannot do that. That has to be settled through a Sharia court of law, and there is compensation for that, etc., etc. You cannot do that, etc. So justice here in the Sharia sense doesn't mean to reciprocate what somebody else did to me. In some matters, yes, that happens, but not in all matters. Be very careful. If somebody cut my fingers, I'm not going to go and cut his fingers. If somebody killed my mother, I'm not going to go kill his mother and call that justice. That's dirar. These are all examples of dirar. Thank you. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.